All right, welcome into this episode of the Platform Podcast. My guest today needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyways. She is the legend, Lorna Kleidman. She is a personal trainer, a master of sport in kettlebell sport, and a snatch expert, if I do say so myself. Lorna, thank you so much for coming on.
Jordan, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. And I was listening to all the podcasts in the past few weeks, and you've got all the single name athletic stars on, a Solomon and Carter and Juan and Douglas and Jennifer. And I'm like, I mean, everybody knows who those people are.
Yeah.
And so they're all good friends, and I respect and love them all. So I'm really honored to be in such great company. Thank you
Well,
for having me.
and now I've got Lorna. I mean,
Yeah, you got Lorna,
you're
but
a single name athlete too. Let's just set the context for everybody. Lorna is a world record holder in snatch. She with the 24 kilo kettlebell, she can out snatch me, and I literally am two of her as far as body weight is concerned. So she is fantastic with the 24 kilo kettlebell. What's your personal record for snatch now?
so far I'm up to 169 with the
That is
24.
that is incredible. And you did
Yeah,
what, 220, I think 207 earlier this week with the 20?
207 with the 20, which is a new absolute national record, and that felt really good. Yeah, my training's been
You made
really
it look
good.
easy, that's
Like,
for sure.
huh?
You made it look easy, that's for sure. I saw the
You know
video and I
what?
was like,
It's
that
like
looks so
late the
easy.
past year, my training's been so good, and things have just come together. And now I realize that it doesn't have to be such a struggle. You don't have to fight to the death on the platform. I know what that's like, but now you fight the most during training. And then now in the past year, when I go to reach my personal bests or submit competition video, it's just something's clicking where it's easy because the training is so um, thorough and appropriate. So
Thorough
that's
is a
like it's like the
a nice
golden
word for
place.
it. I like
It
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's where you want to be. I mean, that's what you train for years to get to. It's like it's where you want to be. So when those bigger numbers come and it's not so arduous and you feel like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. And you don't
So
have to go
one
take a nap afterward. Then you know it's good.
that's one of my favorite parts though.
Yeah, I'm all about that too.
you get the best sleep. So when you talk about your training being thorough and your prep being thorough, do you typically train with heavier weights than what you compete with, or do you train above pace, or what's kind of your approach to making sure you have that base to be able, I mean, sustaining 20 RPMs for a full 10 minutes is a serious undertaking with any weight, but you do it with really high weights, relative to your body weight. So how do you prepare for that?
Well, it's based on what my coach gives me. And I've been with 9 different coaches through the past 12 years. And I've had she's Alexandra Vasiliev, and she's just great for me. So I do lift some heavier than competition weight, but a lot of what I do is submaximal or under competition weight, high volume,
Mm,
high
okay.
volume.
And
Yeah,
volume being for the total session, or volume being without putting the bell down, or a little bit of
both,
both, or both?
both.
Okay.
It depends on the day. Both.
Do you get when you get your program, do you get you get it by email and you're like, oh God, I never know until I open it.
Not anymore. I've tried to train myself to not have that mental reaction because that distraction, reaction distraction. I try to just look at it and say, okay, let's see what happens. This is what I'm going to do today. And if I fall short, it's not the end of the world. But I try not to have that kind of, oh my God, am I going to be able to do it? I don't know. I don't, you know. And if I really feel dread, and I don't feel like I'm ready to do it, then I might take an extra day off and do it tomorrow.
Hmm.
If it really seems like it's going to be a big undertaking, which some sets are, then once in a while I might say, okay, let me just take another 24 hours and I'll do it tomorrow.
Nice. I like that. I like that approach. How many days a week are you training currently?
3 to 4 with the bells. And then I do strength and conditioning with a trainer whom I was seeing in the city when I lived in the city. Now I see him. I go into the city maybe once a month to see him. Otherwise, we
And the
do
city is New York City. For those of
Manhattan,
you that
right?
don't know,
In New York
it's New
City,
York.
right? The city.
The
Sorry,
city is New York, New
Manhattan. Yeah,
York.
in New York City. Now I live in Connecticut as of September, so I do once a month with him uh, down in New York City, and then otherwise remote here at home because travel gets to be too much. So I do so it's 3 or 4 kettlebell sets a week, one strength and conditioning, and then I go to the gym and do some accessory work myself, like some hip work, some posterior shoulder work, a lot of ab work, and then some cardio myself. So I'd say in total it's about um, 9 to 10 hours a week, which
Okay.
is
Totally
completely
reason
manageable.
totally reasonable amount of training, honestly. Like
Yes.
that's not crazy. Like that's not 3 hours a day, 6 days a week or
I
any of
used to
those.
do that. When I was
I,
a fitness class junkie before I got into weightlifting. That's what I was doing. It was just maniacal. It was insane.
okay, so we got to talk about it because you put it out there. So we said we were going to be a little bit light on your background because you've done a lot of podcasts, and I don't want to retread a bunch of stuff that people can find on other podcasts with you. But
Right, right.
give us the the Cliff's Notes version of how did Lorna Kleinman
Okay,
become
so
the
Cliff
fitness
Note.
junkie? And
When I was about 28, between 28 and 33, I was taking classes. I started taking aerobics at the local gym. I started taking step class and I started taking boxing. And on Saturday, and I was single at this point, so I had lots of time. And then on Saturdays, I would go to the gym and I would take this body sculpting class, and then I would take a step class. Well, one day I had a really good cup of coffee, and a friend of mine said, there's a boxing class at 10 o'clock. Well, this was after my 2 or 11 o'clock. These were after the body sculpting class and the step class. And they said, oh, I want to take it. So I took the third class. And then the same boxing teacher then did, after he did the aerobic boxing class, he did a heavy bag class. So then I started taking that class. And literally for 6 years, every Saturday, I was taking 4 classes every Saturday. And then, like, when I get to the gym, I'd actually run a mile on the treadmill to warm up for the first class. And I was just a fitness class junkie. And then my conditioning was really, really good.
I can imagine.
And then when I was introduced to kettlebells, my conditioning was super, super was good. But I really didn't have the strength. So then I started lifting weights. But anyway, I've been there. And in my 30s, I remember taking these classes and thinking, how in the world am I going to maintain this? If this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to look, and there's no way I can sustain this
Yeah.
for many more years, just because I don't have the time, not because I don't want to. I'm not going to have the time to dedicate to this. Well, fortunately, then kettlebells came and weightlifting came, and then I realized, well, I don't have to work out 14 hours a week, 15 hours a week. But it was fun while I did it.
Yeah, for sure. So who was it that introduced you to kettlebells? Like who gets credit for getting getting the legend into the sport? Like who gets that credit?
There was a gentleman. I moved to Florida with my husband when we first got married. We lived there for 2 years and then we came back to New York. But when I was in Florida, I met a gentleman. His name was Adam Cronin. And Adam, I started training with Adam, and he was the co-founder of Kettlebell Concepts, unbeknownst to me. And he started teaching me kettlebell fitness, figure eights and presses and cleans and kettlebell fitness types of moves, Turkish get up, windmills, among other types of lifting. He taught me how to deadlift and how to squat and all of these, different types of lifting. And then he heard about a Russian kettlebell sport coach in California. And he said, there's this competition called kettlebell. There's a kettlebell competition. I think you'd be really good at it because you're dedicated, you work out hard, you like to work, your conditioning's good. So he made the introduction, or he told me about this gentleman. I called him and I went out to California, and he became my first coach. And he said that he was hosting the first competition in the US with IGSF. That was back in 2007. He said, I'm hosting this in California in 8 months. And I can coach you. I'd like you to compete and be on my team. And I said, well, if you believe in me and you think I can do well and not make a fool of myself, then I'll try it. So I trained with him remotely. He would send me my programs, and by then we moved back to New York. So he was sending me my programs. He wasn't a very good coach, I came to learn, but you don't know anything when you start out.
You don't
Somebody
know what you don't
makes an
know when you start.
introduction, you don't know. I didn't know from anything. Anyway, so he hosted this IGSF competition, and he didn't invest in electronic counters. So the judges were literally, those cardboard, their numbers.
Yeah,
And
like
you
the flip boards, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. You have two rings,
yeah.
and you take the number and you flip
Like
it over.
middle school basketball game scorekeeping, because people are only going to make like 12 baskets a game, so you don't really
Right.
need the electronic scoreboard. They're just
I don't know how in the world they did it, but at
Oh
one
my
point,
God.
fortunately, they counted all my reps. But with the men, I don't remember if it was jerk or long cycle. My husband's watching them, and he's looking at the numbers. One of the judges is flipping, and he's like, "This guy's losing reps." And my husband, out of nowhere, is like contesting these Russian judges. He's like, "Wait a minute, this guy's got 5 more reps than you're counting," and he noticed it right away. So it was really it was my first, but it was a good experience. And then after that,
So that's
I
kettlebell
got the
sport in
bug.
the USA for the first time.
Right.
We're setting the bar pretty low.
It was very, very low. It was very low. But then, I got the bug and I kept training, and
Did you win? Did you win? Did I
I
just hear you say?
won that one. Not really. I came in second in my weight category. But I made a PR, which was good. And then I came in first in my age category, but I wasn't competing against anybody else.
Yeah,
But it really
one of
felt
those.
good. Yeah, it's one of those. So, but it was great, and it was a really good experience, and I met a lot of people. And then it was onward from there. I just wanted to continue and see where I could go with it.
Fast forward 14 years and you're still kicking ass and taking names and breaking PRs and setting national records. So you were there at the start for the US introduction
Yes.
to kettlebell sport. Where do you see the future of the sport going, right? Because that's a big thing.
Wow, that's such a good question. It's unfortunate that when kettlebells are mentioned on social media or somebody's demonstrating, the default kettlebell style is hard style. First, I just want to say that it's really a shame. I saw a post last week of a video of a young woman who's very capable, good teacher, saying kettlebell. She was coming down on kettlebell instructors, and she said, if you're a kettlebell instructor, then why are you teaching and demonstrating your swings with single arm swings with rotation, or your snatches with rotation? And why are you lifting your heels? Shouldn't be doing that. If we want to have, qualified trainers and you're calling yourself a kettlebell instructor, then don't do this, and, do it this way, and blah, blah, blah. And I really wasn't clear on who she was speaking to in terms of what style. So I messaged her, or I posted on her, I posted a response. I said, well, but you're aware that in kettlebell sport, we do lift one heel and we do use rotation. She said, oh yes, I'm not talking to kettlebell sport. It's a different intention. Okay, I get it. But when I demonstrate kettlebell sport movements or technique in my videos, I qualify it as kettlebell sport. Here, these are techniques we're going to utilize, and this is what I'm going to show you in order to have endurance, in order to get your numbers up to compete, or in order to just work your cardio, right? You don't have to compete. But yet, when the hard stylers demonstrate, it's like, this is how you're supposed to move a kettlebell. Well, no. And I know you've had these conversations with other lifters on your podcast before, so I'm not going to belabor it. But unfortunately, that's where we are now, is that the default is the hard style, which is a style. It's a
Yeah.
style for a certain purpose. It's not the. Okay, where do I see it going? I think what has to happen is there has to be a lot more publicity. If I had tons of money, I would hire a PR firm to talk about kettlebell sport, and then I would try to get some connections with big corporations to take it on and talk about it and promote it, just like what happened with Reebok and CrossFit. Because CrossFit was basically underground for a few years before the boxes started to really proliferate. Then it grew, memberships grew. Okay, it became a franchise, great. But then it really exploded when Reebok
Yeah. Threw it on the
took it under
national
its wing.
stage, got it on ESPN too. And
Right.
yeah.
So I think that's what has to happen with our sport. It's got to, I don't think it's going to be an organic, slow growth. That's going to take way too long. It has to be promoted. It has to be packaged a certain way, and then people will be excited about it.
What are your thoughts on like standardization of the weights and the standard, like the lifting standards? Because one of the things that we're kind of running into is similar to what you see in boxing, where it's like there are so many federations and there are so many different standards and there's so many organizations that people get confused because they're like, wait, you can get rank 1 in IKO with this output, but for Keta Academy, it's a different output. And for IKMF, it's a different standard, right? Like there's different weight
Yeah.
classes, there's different standards, right? So what are your thoughts on that, on those dynamics?
I think we should be doing whatever is going to take the sport further toward the Olympics. If it means that we need to create one federation with one set of rules, then that's where we should be going. I mean, what's our community's goal? Is it to get into the Olympics? Is it to get it to be popular? Whatever is that's going to take, as opposed to just starting your own organization and starting your own ranks. And well, if your goal is to be a coach and to monetize the sport and to have your own thing, that's a good goal, but it's not working to take the sport much further.
Yeah, I'm a rising tide floats all boats kind of person, right? And like the more standardized we are across the different federations, and to your point, getting the sport to the Olympics, that's only going to be good for everybody because
Right.
if you are a coach trying to monetize, the sport, well then if people see it on the Olympics, they see it on TV, guess what? Suddenly awareness of kettlebell sport goes up by
Exactly.
100
Exactly.
million people overnight because now suddenly people are like, oh, there's a sport where you compete with kettlebells, and it's not this thing where you're having to explain to people, oh no, hard style isn't the only way to move a kettlebell.
Right.
Actually, there's this whole tradition that goes back 40 years of people actually competing in this, right, and having that intro
Yes.
to kettlebell sport conversation over and over and over again. So but I struggle with that, like that interpersonal dynamic and the politics and everything, because I try and stay out of the politics because of the different
Yeah.
federations, because I don't like it. But at the same time, there's like you can't lead if you refuse to engage either. So
Right.
there's a part of me that's like, all right, at some point somebody's going to have to come in and unify people and say like, hey, let's all agree, like you said, let's all agree on what the goal is. And if we're all for kettlebell sport and we want to see it grow, then it needs to be, people need to be aware. Well, how can we raise awareness?
Right.
Standardized standards and get it into the Olympics, right? Like
But it's
that's,
whose standards? That's the question. It's like whose standards? Everybody wants it to be their standards.
I don't care
Some
who that's the difference. Like I have no
ish.
ego about it. I don't
I
care whose
agree.
standards. I just want them to be standards, and I want it to be make sense. Like to me, I think the thing that makes the most sense, in my opinion, and this is the first time I've articulated this on the podcast, but what makes the most sense to me is you look at USA Powerlifting as an example to follow, because they have one federation, USAPL, that everybody agrees is kind of the standard for powerlifting, right? They have standardized lengths and dimensions for the barbells. They have a
Mhm.
men's length for the barbell and a women's length for the barbell. I think there should be two dimensions, one for men, one for women, right? And I don't care what those standards are. We can have that discussion about what makes the most sense for the most lifters, right? And talk about those things. What makes the most sense for the weight classes? What are the right standards from a reps and sets and all that? Great. We're all smart people. We can come have those conversations and come to some level of consensus. But first we have to agree on, we need standards, standards, and what are the standards that we're going to pursue. And I think we can use that as a model to then work towards standardization, and then that gets us legitimacy, right? You have to have standards for the equipment, you have to have standards for the rankings, you have to have standards for the weight classes, like those types of things, so that when the Olympic Committee decides to assess it, it's easy for them. You don't have to make them do that work themselves, because they're not going to. They're going to be like, come back when you're serious and you've got your shit together.
I
Like,
completely agree with you. And they are looking at it. The IOC is considering it's under consideration, which is a huge deal. And we should follow the template set by the weightlifting community. They've already done it, and we're a weightlifting sport, so
yeah.
we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There should be different standards for the bell handles for men and women, just like there were with the barbells. I totally agree with you.
See, we're making progress. We're figuring things out. So
yeah.
Well, so so aside from getting it into the Olympics, what else are like the things that you see? So taking the marketing component aside, because I completely agree with you. Where do you see the sport going as far as what do you think people are going to be able to do from an output standpoint? Because every time I turn on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, like I see somebody putting up a new PR, a new world record, and I'm amazed.
It's pretty insane. It's pretty insane. I think the lifting weights for women's lifts will probably be increased to 28 at some point, and maybe also the men's. Why not? Where else? Or it's got to be an increase of time. So I think the first thing will be an increase of the weights, and maybe we'll get into more triathlon events where you're doing, jerk, snatch, and then long cycle, things like that.
I love hate the triathlon. Like I signed up for a 10-minute triathlon in the end of February, and I'm to your earlier conversation. There's a little bit of dread. Like I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do a full 10-minute triathlon, but I'm gonna give it the old college try. We'll see how.
I think we're always going to push it forward. Well, getting back to my first couple of competitions with IGSF, women were only about 25% of the lifting populace.
Yeah.
And back then, women could only in IGSF, before Fedorenko created his competitions, or maybe at the same time, but I hadn't gone to them yet. I had only done the IGSF competitions. And women were only allowed to do snatch. There was no long cycle, jerk or long cycle for women yet. And then they were only lifting the 16 kg back in 2007, 2008. So look how far we've come in 13, 14 years already. Pretty great.
I mean, it is great, the progress, but there's part of me that's like, I still see some of the baked in patriarchy.
Yes.
And it bothers the shit out of me.
Yeah.
It really bothers me. And you'll still see some of those attitudes and some of those things. You still see athletes or certain coaches that push their female athletes to do one arm long cycle and compete in one bell events. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. Like, how can you watch, Kim Fox and be like, yeah, girls shouldn't lift the big bells. Like,
I have no idea what goes through people's minds if they're limiting a woman like that. If she wants to do it, she should find another coach.
Yeah, it is diminishing significantly, and because of women like you and women like Kim, and there's so many phenomenal female lifters out there. And
absolutely,
I mean, that's really where you see the boundaries being pushed the most, maybe because they had the most to go,
right.
They had the most space to grow, but you're really seeing women just pushing the boundaries higher and higher and higher all the time. And it's so cool to see. And I love showing it to my daughter. My daughter's got a pretty good long cycle already, and she's 6. So
how old is she?
She's 6 right now.
Oh,
she turns 7.
fantastic.
She turns
That's
7
a great
this
time to
summer.
start.
Yeah. And I've got their bells from Moses, right? They've got their little youth bells, which is awesome. That's another huge part of it. I think, what are your thoughts on like youth? How do we start a youth movement?
That's such a great question. I love Moses bells. The kids' bells are so well balanced. And they're comfortable. I love, they're fantastic. I can't say enough about his bells. He did a really great thing by bringing them and making them. I'm going to be bringing a children's kettlebell course to Chelsea Piers here in Connecticut. I presented to them.
Nice.
They're very interested. I might bring some kettlebell sport for adults too, but the children's program I'm really excited about, because that's the next generation. I mean, we need to start training some kids and really getting kids serious about it and understanding the benefits and the transfer to other activities, whether it's soccer, ice hockey, swimming, whatever, or just confidence, posture,
Yeah.
all of that, it transfers, and get them to appreciate the magnificence of this sport. I'm really excited. So we might think, once COVID slows down a little bit and more people can do classroom events, we're going to be bringing that to Chelsea Piers. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, we need to grow the youth teams. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that you're doing that. It's one of those things that I have not really done any significant effort with youth. Like, a part of it is I think I'm a little scared to do it, honestly. Like, because I've not because I am I have experience coaching youth sports. Like, I coach
Uh-huh.
youth football and things like that, and that's part of what makes me scared to go that direction, because I know parents. I know parents, and it gets a little.
Oh yeah.
The kids are great. The
I
parents are
didn't even
terrible.
consider that. The parents. Oh my God.
I
It's
mean,
like the
that's
horror movie. It's like eat, eat.
it's
Right.
sometimes it's one of those things where, like, there's no winning, right? And that was like my my problem when I was coaching youth football. It was like, if we won all of the games but not everybody played, I have parents that are mad at me.
Sure.
If we lose all the games, then I've got parents being like, why is that kid playing? And it's like, they're sixth graders, right? Like, it's not about winning or losing at this point.
Right.
We're just trying to foster a love of the game and build discipline and fitness and those types of things. But that, like, it was just, there was no way. Like, if we started tackling on the first day that we could do contact, then I had some parents that were concerned that we were tackling too soon, and I made the decision to not do tackling on the first day that we could legally do it one
Yeah.
season. I was like, no, we're going to progress. You're going to earn your helmet, basically, is what I told them. So we started in shoulder pads without helmets, practicing form tackling. Again, we're talking sixth and seventh graders, right? And I had parents calling me after that practice, telling me we weren't doing the right thing, reported me to the league commissioner,
Oh
telling
my
me that
God.
our kids aren't going to be prepared for contact because we're not doing it from day one. And I'm like, I'm trying to keep kids safe here. Like, have you not been reading the news about concussions and all of
Yep.
this? But it was like, I got out of coaching football altogether because of that,
Yeah.
because
It's
it's
too much
just,
pressure, and there's absolutely very little appreciation. And you're the expert, and yet all the parents know better than you as to what you should do. And no matter what you do or who you try to please, you're not going to please
well,
everybody.
back in my day, this is how we did, like,
Right.
you get that. So I think I have a little baggage when it comes to coaching
Understandable.
youth athletes,
Understandable.
but
Yeah. So do you know where the name kettlebell comes from?
no.
This is fascinating. So I researched it many years ago, because I said, where the hell? Because people, even I, couldn't remember the name when I first heard it. I kept calling it kettles. I couldn't remember the name kettlebell because it's so unusual. And then I find most people can't remember it either. They call it kettleball, or
Kettlebells. Yeah.
whatever, the balls or those metal things with the handle. So I was doing some research, and the legend has it that back centuries ago, when the big church bells were rung, right? The bells were attached to ropes that were threaded through pulleys. And now some of these bells weighed as much as 3 tons, and it required a team of men who were very strong and very skilled and coordinated to ring the bells, pulling on the ropes to make the sound, right? The church on Sundays. Okay. So, in order for these church bell ringing men to perfect their skills and coordination, they would actually practice in another area of the church. Now, the practice bells did not have a clapper. This way, they weren't making sound. They were just pulling and strengthening their abs and their lats, right? So they're practicing their timing of the pulling without the clapper. So they'd put the clappers to the side, or they'd put them outside the church. Now, local people who wanted to do some strength training would take these clappers and use them as weight lifting equipment. And they became known as dumbbells, because now the bell is dumb, doesn't make sound because you've
Yep.
taken the clapper out. Okay, so then the next story goes, or the advancement of the story goes, that strongmen and athletes used to utilize old cooking kettles, and they would take them and fill them with lead shot or sand, and they became these load adjustable weights that they could swing and press and toss around. These became known as kettlebells.
I did not know that.
Isn't
That
that
is
fascinating?
that is a fact. There, it's hard to out nerd me on something kettlebell related, and that is awesome.
It's really
You
cool,
found a
especially,
story
I
I
mean,
had
you
not heard
think that
before.
the dumbbell comes from the church bells.
That is
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
fascinating. It's a fascinating history. So now when somebody says kettlebell, you can say, well, no, it's a kettlebell like dumbbell, because they're synonymous.
Well, now I have a story to tell them too, as to where it came from. So
Exactly.
I love
Very
that.
interesting.
That is fantastic. That is awesome. You now you speaking of dumbbells, you do a lot of training outside of kettlebells. Like it's
Yes.
not your only thing, and particularly with your athlete, or I
Yeah.
shouldn't say your athletes, with your clients, right? Some of them are your athletes, but with your clients, as a PT, you're not just like a one trick pony. You don't just use
Oh,
kettlebells for everything, right? You use a wide variety of implements,
everything.
right? So
Almost,
tell us a
almost,
little bit
almost
about your
everything.
training philosophy with that.
Oh yeah. Well, my training philosophy is we're going to I really like for my clients to keep an open mind and be curious about what they can do each day. So we're going to go through a full warm up. We're going to get you a little cardio in, maybe a little power work, depending on your goals, depending on your ability, depending on your age. We're going to do a full body workout. And then at the end, we do some assistance drills. I have clients who are in their 20s, and I have a gentleman who's 83 years old, and he can swing the 24 kilogram kettlebell like nobody's business. He's
Nice.
unbelievable.
I want to be that guy.
I work with him 4 days a week for 5 years now. He's incredible. And he's still trying to get his time down with the rower. He's got his best is 500-meter row at 2 minutes. And every time he does a 500-meter row, I do different increments of rows with him. But every time he does it, he's trying to beat his 200 his 2 minutes still. So it's a delight to work with him. But I work with all ages, all levels, and a little kettlebell work if they want it. If they don't want it, um, we'll talk to them about it a little bit. But I don't push the kettlebells on them. That's my thing. If they don't want
Yeah.
to do it, it's absolutely fine. I work with my clients based on what they want and what their goals are, and then we're going to train accordingly.
That's fantastic. Well, and so you're saying you're across all ages and ability levels. Is there an avatar, or is it really just like you work with all sorts of people, different goals, weight loss, weight gain, strength, like, or is there like a particular area that you're mostly focused on?
Strength, endurance, conditioning. And I especially love to work with people 40 and over, because I didn't start working out really hard till I was about 34, because I had really bad asthma, even into my even when I was started taking classes in my 20s, the asthma was kicking my butt. So I didn't
Hmm.
really start training in earnest till my mid 30s. So I know what it's like to have goals and to work and to learn, and to have lifestyle and things in life to come into play, and having to consider that. So I like to work with a little bit of the older generation.
You should get a hold of that Tom Brady guy. I hear
Yeah,
he's I hear
I
he's up
hear
there. He's getting up there in age, but he's still pretty good.
he's magnificent. He's
Were you were,
magnificent,
were you rooting, were you rooting
unbelievable.
for him, or were you?
I'm not gonna say, but no, actually, I wasn't rooting for him. I was like, give somebody else a chance.
I honestly, so you're actually echoing kind of my feelings on Tom Brady. So like
But
I
there's
love
no
when
denying he's
you can't
magnificent.
deny, like you just as a as an observer, you have to recognize the greatness, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
you
crazy how
have
great
to.
he is. But like I'm like when he first came in the league and he took over the job from Bledsoe, and I was like, I loved him at Michigan, and I hated that he lost his job at Michigan. And then he came and took the job from Bledsoe, and then he went and won a Super Bowl. And I was like, this is awesome. What a great story. 6th-round pick, underdog, right? And then he continues to ascend and like just works his butt off. And
Yeah,
I'm like, I
yeah,
love this guy. He's
yeah.
fantastic. Like he's gonna make the most of his talent, right? And all of that. And loved all of that. And then he beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl when I was in college, and that crushed me. And so then I started to not like him so much. And then now it's just I'm like, all right, I wanted to see I wanted to see the kind of the torch
The
pass to
underdog,
Mahomes a
but
little bit, but
yeah,
like I'm a whore for greatness though too. Like
there's no denying his greatness.
I love seeing greatness. Like it's just great to witness, and like when you
Yes.
watch him play, it's just crazy that
And what
at
an
that,
inspiration. Oh my
like to
goodness.
do it for so
Unbelievable.
long at such a
Yeah.
high level, and how dedicated he is, and
Yep.
all his mindset, like he's dedicated his life to the level he's achieved. And I also love the fact that he says, no matter what, I'm never going to make as much money as my wife, so it doesn't really matter what they pay me.
That's
Like
his only humbling factor. But no, there's no denying his greatness. He's astoundingly just an unbelievable person, unbelievable athlete. Yeah.
he really is. He really is. And I'm always super impressed with his mindset component, right? Like that's such a thing that I'm really big on studying and trying to learn from. How do you approach mindset with the sport? Like, cause I the stuff that I read from you on your social media, like I love the way that you articulate things. I love your perspective on things, and how you kind of call bullshit, but you do it in such a nice way. You do it in such a nice
Mm.
way. But you like, how do you approach like your mindset to training? What do you try and instill in your clients? Like, how do you approach mindset?
I think the first thing is, like I said, to remain curious, not to say, well, last week I didn't fulfill my goal, so you know that's going to affect today, or yesterday I was perfect, so today's going to be perfect. It's just coming into each training day or each workout day with a curiosity. How do I feel today? What's my motivation? How does my body feel? Do I feel tired? What's that from? Or do I feel unmotivated? Maybe I don't feel tired, but I just don't really want to do this today. That's okay. Just feel it. And, but we've got work to do. What are you distracted? What's distracting you? How can we put that to the side for an hour or so? And just checking in and being truthful to yourself and to your trainer. I'm truthful to my trainer. I expect people to be truthful to me. And that's about it. And then I don't compete with, I look at other people's numbers, but I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm really trying to get myself better each and every day, not just with sport, in many ways, as a friend, as a wife, as a human being. I'm trying every day to do something better,
Hmm.
just a little bit better. So
How has sport
that's,
helped you with that? How has kettlebell sport helped you with that?
wow, the longer I'm in the sport, the more humble I feel. When I first started and I won, whatever competitions I won the first couple of years, I was just so it's just a totally different intention. Like, look at me, I did this, and oh my God, I'm so good. And it was important for me to say, look what I did. Now I still say, look what I did, but it's from a different place. It's like a
Hmm.
place of um, I obsession, but really putting the time and the thought and the problem solving. Problem solving for me in this sport, especially with snatch, has been huge. And I have pages of documents on different things I've tried. I've tried every single iteration of snatch, from different shoes to different stance to different breathing to different reps, to watching the clock to not watching the clock, to the way I insert, to the acceleration pull, to the way I drop, to the this, to the that. I've done every iteration possible, and I figured out what works for me. That
Can
has
you send me that
taken
list, because I feel like
years,
I need it?
years. Because every time I saw somebody else, well, especially before this year, where I feel like I've come into a nice nice place, a nice groove. Prior to that, it was like, well, maybe if I did this like that, and maybe if I did that, I was always problem solving and experimenting. to the point of madness where I'd be trying to go to sleep and I'd think, well, oh, maybe if I inserted this way, and then I'd get up and I'd take my 12 kg and I'd start practicing with it, and I'd start making notes. And the next day I'd have to do a half an hour of it to see how it feels before my real set. So it's just obsessive, but it made me really humble.
Mm.
And it's the confidence, but it's the nowadays reaching the goals. It's not such a high. It just feels satisfying. It's like,
Mm.
okay, I knew I could do it. I worked for it. I did it, and it's satisfying. It's like finding the perfect greeting card for your mom, or it's like finding the perfect parking space after
Oh, that's a
waiting
very
for,
New York
like
experience.
circling around, looking for the parking space. Then you get it and you're like, oh, that's good. That's how it feels now. So it's very different from when it's just different,
Mm.
but it's synonymous with a lot of things in life: patience, thinking things through, knowing that today, if you're not so good today, doesn't mean you're not going to be good tomorrow. It's also asking other people what they think. So it's so much of it translates into, and a lot of it is not about the body for me. It's like, yeah, I take care of my body. Yeah, I do my strength and conditioning. That all goes into it. But so much of it is the attitude and the approach, and then what the sport gives back in terms of the feedback about who you are. It's
Mm.
interesting. In years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I had hit a plateau with the 24 kg, and I was trying to break through, and no matter what I was doing, it wasn't working. So I was looking at a couple of other female lifters, and I saw them very smooth style, looked effortless, very smooth, very hypnotic, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just be like that, more relaxed, because I'm more like frantic and snappy, and
Mm-hmm.
so then I tried to do that relaxed style, and I tried that for months, maybe a year, and I was able to do it a little bit, but it wasn't my natural body's way. So my brain said, let's do this, body, let's change
Mm.
it up and see if you can get better. Well, I didn't get better. And then when I went back to my own energetic way, my snappy way, I want to get in and out of the movement quickly. So then I started working with that again, and making different changes and having a new coach and blah, blah, blah. Then it started to come together. And now I can be snappy, use the energy the way my body wants to move with the bell. And then I'm able to find the relaxation within my snappy approach.
That's fantastic.
So it's important for each lifter to find their own way, and don't try to fight it. If you want to move in a certain way, then if your body is prone to doing it that way, then just stick with that and try to find the nuances within that movement.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. I try and encourage my athletes to experiment and iterate, and I try and not be too diagnostic about what the way they should do it, because I'm a very big proponent of bioindividuality is very much a
Right.
thing. There is no one right way to do it. There's your right way to do it, and we've got to find what that is, and that requires test and iteration for sure.
Correct. It really does. And when you're looking at other lifters, you think you see something that they're doing. Oftentimes it's not what they're actually doing.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean? Give me an example, because I think I understand what you're saying, but give me an example to make sure I'm grokking what you're saying
So for
correctly.
example, when somebody drops the bell, when somebody's lowering the bell, um, it may look like they're spinning it, like they're spinning the bell and then catching it. Whereas they're not. They're actually letting it. The bell might stop at they're fixating at the side of the wrist, but then as they lower the arm, the bell is turning on its own by virtue of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
But to the eye, to the viewer's eye, it looks like the lifter's spinning the bell, and they're
Yeah.
not. That's
They're
one
just
example.
letting gravity do its work,
Yeah.
but it
So
looks like it's they're spinning it, but all they did was internally rotate their hand, and the center of gravity of the bell took over, and
correct.
they stayed out of its way.
Correct. So there's a lot of that, like you think you're seeing what the lifter's doing, you try to emulate it, but it's not always the case that they're doing what you think they're doing.
Mm,
That's also can be very frustrating.
yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's like, I think that's such a huge lesson, especially for new lifters, like to not try and don't try and emulate anyone's particular style. Like you said, test and try different things, but
Try it all.
don't try and recreate somebody else's style, because I made that mistake as a new lifter. Like I was going to try and lift like so and so, and like, like, nah. No, I'm not that guy. Like, no, that's not me. I can't do that. Right. Like
It's hard not
that's
to
a
do.
hard
It's hard
lesson.
not to do that. You're like, oh my God, she's so good, or he's so amazing, and it looks so effortless. And, he's doing this or she's doing that this way. Maybe I should try it. But yes, try everything. But then, take note of what feels good and what doesn't, and make sure that what feels good, just try to stick with that
Mm.
and
Yeah,
harness that. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. You said that you mentioned that you've learned a lot. The sport has taught you a lot about yourself mentally. So what would you say is like the number one thing that it's taught you about yourself over the course of your career?
Um, the main thing is to, well, it's really hard to care less about the results.
Mm,
The closer you get to competition, for me, the less I try to care, but it's really tough. But if I go in caring, I'm going to be super stressed and I'm going to be in my head,
mm.
which happens a lot, and that's no absolutely no good.
Yeah, stay out of there. It's scary in there.
Stay
Right.
out of the head. Yeah. Stay out of the head, especially on competition day. So I try to just go into my body and feel what I'm doing and let my body do what it knows how to do. If I can
Mm,
do that, then it's a piece of cake. The hardest part for me is just getting out of the head and getting out of, I'm here to compete.
yeah.
Getting out of that. If I can just relax and let my body do what it does, then I'm good
So
with that as well.
when you're in that mindset, right? When you get to that flow state, are you on the platform by yourself, even though there's people on platforms next to you, or is it just you and the bell and nothing else exists? Or are you always mindful of what else is like? Because I've heard some people say like no matter what, they're always like in the room, right? And I've heard other people say like, yeah, when I get into it, like it's just me. It doesn't. I could be in a room, an empty room. I could be in a stadium. It doesn't matter.
I think it's like a meditation where you're completely focused on what you're doing, but you're also aware that there are people watching, and you're aware you can hear your fellow lifters breathing, or you can hear what they're doing. So you're aware, but you're aware of what's going on, but you're hyper focused on what's going on with your activity.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm in a vacuum, but just hyper aware.
Interesting. That's really, really interesting. I love that. That's one of my like. It took me a long time to ever get there with Snatch, but now that's one of my favorite things about Snatch. Was it was my like it was I am not gonna lie, like I hated it for a long time. Like
Yeah.
I hated it. I
There's a
avoided
lot to
Snatch
hate
practice.
about it.
I hated Snatch practice. I avoided it. I avoided it. But now like you get to a certain point when you get the it's kind of like golf, right? Where like when you get that one rep that flies up there and you like, oh my God, that was beautiful. What did I
Feels
do?
so good. Yeah,
Right.
feels
But
so good.
it's that one rep that gets you coming back because you're like, I know I can make that feel effortless. I know I can
Yes,
do it where it doesn't feel like work. Like and that, like
yes,
you
exactly.
try and increase the frequency that you get those like those reward reps, I call them, right? Those are the like the reward reps are really what keep you coming back. Like so now
Exactly. That's
I
right.
love the snatch now.
That's right. I was in terms of what it also teaches is I just like I think it's with any sport or any flow state that you get out of yourself. You get out of your conscious mind. It's the same with anything. It could be golf, it could be any sport, it could be meditation or jogging, whatever it is. It just gets you out of your own mind and into a different realm. And that's also what I crave.
Mm,
So if it was in kettlebell sport, it could be boxing, it could be jump rope, it could be some other activity. But I happen to find it in snatch. It's I like being in another state of mind where I'm struggling and I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to let my body do its thing and get through the struggle. and get out of the way. And I like that challenge.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. So what's next for you? Like what's next on the horizon for
Well,
you?
a couple things. So the group IKSFA, ICSFA, is a fabulous educational, kettlebell sport educational organization created by a dear friend of mine. I don't know if you know him, Alexander Kaysen. Alexander passed away in August he had a brain hemorrhage, a sudden brain hemorrhage. And he was one of my dearest friends. And he started ICSFA back in, I think it was 2011, to bring world champions together to teach kettlebell sport worldwide. And they also hosted competitions. And in 2011, Alexander put together a group of coaches. There was the three Sergeys. There was Sergey Merkulin, Sergey Rachinsky, Sergey Rudinev. There was Denis Vasiliev. There was Mishin. There was Anton Anasenko. And there were about 25 or 30 students from around the world. And we all met in St. Petersburg, Russia. And we had a training camp for a week. And we would lift for
Awesome.
about, it was unbelievable. We lifted, we learned the lifts, we did accessory drills, and we learned about coaching and programming. So we did this for about 5 days, and we lifted for about 5 hours. Then we'd retreat to the hotel to change. And then each evening, we would have an excursion or a tour in St. Petersburg. That will never happen again. There were so many people, there were so many my peers and the coaches. A lot of us have gone our own ways, started our own organizations, but the way he brought everyone together back when kettlebell sport was fairly new to the country, I don't see that happening again. It was a really special time. So me and Sergey Rudinev and Alexander's wife Lara, we are bringing ICSFA courses now online during the pandemic. And we're going to roll it out in a couple months. We're just getting everything together and online. And we're going to start in North America. So it'll be live on Zoom. All the courses will be live once a week, 3 hours each segment. We're going to learn clean, jerk, snatch, long cycle, and then some kettlebell fitness movements also. So we're going to be doing this. There'll be CEUs included. And so we're going to keep ICSFA alive. And then when we can, we're going to also travel for live courses in person. But right now we're going to do it online so that everybody can keep up, can learn kettlebell sport.
Oh, fantastic. Well, when that's ready to go, and if you have a link to share with me, let me have it, and I'll make sure that it's in the show notes, because that's fantastic. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Alexander when he was alive, but I knew of him obviously from having been in the sport for so long and haven't been I never had the chance to meet him, but I know the IKSFA,
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic organization.
It
So
is.
that's awesome. And I wish I had a time machine to go back and be part of that camp, because
Yeah,
it sounds phenomenal.
Really fun. We had a great time. Yeah, Alex was one of the most supportive and influential people in my kettlebell sport career. And he was just a person. He was the type of person who told you the honest truth, like what he thought, but he never put me down. He never put people down. He was from Ukraine. He spoke plainly. Wicked sense of humor. I mean, bright guy, and just it just really a huge loss. But yeah, he was.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely rang out when it happened. Like, I mean, probably 70% of my friends on Facebook are kettlebell people, and it was like, I mean,
great loss.
The tributes were they were heartwarming, and like I never, like I said, I never actually knew him, and I still was like finding myself tearing up and getting emotional seeing the things that people were writing about him and sharing the stories they were sharing about him. He sounded like he was a fantastic human.
He really was a special person. He was. And then secondarily, I am creating Lorna Fit. That's my brand. I'm creating streaming workouts by membership. They're going to be kettlebell fitness workouts with a 15 to 25-pound bell, and also body weight workouts. So I'm producing that now, and that's going to go live probably in April. So all the videos and the membership can be
Awesome.
accessed from my site, because I'm tired of seeing 20-year-old women with their perfect little butts doing 100 bridges and 100 kickbacks and saying, okay, this is
This is how you get
get in shape.
booty.
Well,
The Instagram girl said this is how you get glutes.
so I want to speak to the women 40s and 50s and over, and I'm not just them, but I want to speak to them and say, no, you don't have to get on the floor and on your knees and do all these friggin' hydrants and kickbacks. And let me show you how to do it. Let me show you how I can help you and inspire you to work out, and we're gonna have fun and make it happen.
That sounds awesome. Congratulations. I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's nice.
that's been a lot of effort. Has that been that's your quarantine hobby was
Yes,
I'm gonna launch my own online fitness brand.
yes, yes. I bought. You know what? I have. I don't know if it's a detriment to my personality, or I mean, if it's a a good thing or not. But
It's
when
probably a double-edged sword. It's probably both.
it's a double-edged sword. When I make a decision, I jump in, even when I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea. I bought lights. I bought umbrellas. Um, I didn't have enough light for a certain room I was filming in, so I bought another light and waited 3 more days for it to come to film. And I'm just going by. I'm learning as I go, and that's how
Yeah.
I do it. That's how I do it. But it's gonna be fun. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
So I gotta ask, was the idea already in development prior to COVID happening, or was this like a COVID happened and you're like, I had the idea and this seemed like the perfect time to do it? Or
More the latter. More,
okay.
COVID happened, and I delayed doing these video workouts for a while. But then again, I don't think there are enough instructors in my age category that are leading women to work out. And so I want to be a voice for them, and inspire them and get them to work out and work out properly. And you know
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm so excited for you. Like that is
yeah,
fantastic. And
it's gonna be fun.
I know that's a not a small undertaking to do those things, right? And kudos to you for just
Okay.
being like,
Well,
yeah,
it's like what you're doing.
I'm
I
going
mean,
2 feet in, right?
you're doing the same thing
Yeah, kind
with
of.
the
Not
production.
kind of. I'm
Yeah.
this is a lot less. This is a lot less than that, but
No, it's
thank
not.
you.
It's fun. It'll be fun. Listen, I'm working out anyway. I like creating movements. I'm always thinking of movements that I can create for my clients, whether it's body weight movements or dumbbell. I'm always trying to come up with something creative and new, and or whether bear positions, like how can we make this bear position different, or crawling things, just be creative. So I'm always thinking of that and writing it down. And now it's just time to put it on video and help other people who might want to work out with me. So it'll be fun.
Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I'm very excited for you. Okay, well, I want to be respectful of your time. We blocked an hour. We're almost up against it.
Okay.
So this is the last question, but it's one of my favorites to ask people, especially kettlebell sport athletes who are as accomplished as you. So if you were starting over again, or you got young Lorna, right? And you could give her one piece of advice, or you've got a brand new lifter and you could give them one piece of advice to be successful in kettlebell sport, like the thing that you wish you knew when you started, what would be that thing that you would tell that new lifter, or young Lorna back 15 years ago when she first picked up a bell?
Oh my goodness. Um, oh my goodness. I think I would say um, be patient. Just really be patient. If you want to go far with it, be patient. If you don't want to go far with it, that's fine too. You want to do one competition, one and done. That's absolutely fine. But I think patience is the main thing. Just to stick to it and be patient. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. Well, Lorna, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. I have so thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I am so looking forward to seeing all of the things that you do. I can't wait until we can travel again
Yeah, me
and
too.
get together and be on a platform. I've never met you in person, and
I really look forward.
I've been watching you lift for years. So I'm really looking forward to finally getting a chance to meet you in person. So
Thank
thank
you,
you so much
Jordan.
for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, of course. Have a great night. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye bye.